Topic number 4, Colin.
Okay.
I got to make a time code. It's a little after the 1 hour mark for you, Colin.
101:59 it says.
Thank you very much. As always, these topics for topic number 4 are potpourri that come from the community. If you want to be a part of it, go over to kindafunny.com/forums. You jump in there, you go to the Gamescast, and then we have a thing where you go and you post your question. What up, Kev? You remember that you must have been in this thing. Tim's talent show Mario video?
No, my mom wouldn't let me take this day off school.
Oh.
I'm really upset about that.
Your mom sucks, man.
Yeah. First million views you ever got.
Yeah, first million views Tim ever got.
Yeah.
Anyways, comes from the community. Go there, you push questions, we read them here. Cade Smith 882 says, "Hey guys, what do you guys think Naughty Dog should do after they are finished with Uncharted 4? Should they create a new IP or make a sequel to The Last of Us?" Now, Colin, you have to assume they're already working on a sequel to The Last of Us.
I mean, they are.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty obvious.
Based on comments, right?
Yeah, and it's just commercially obvious. I think the commercial imperative is on Naughty Dog to make Last of Us 2 because Last of Us sold extraordinarily well. I don't know the exact numbers, but I feel like The Last of Us must have sold better than any Uncharted installment.
Any one, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, probably.
So they're
got to be a
going to
pack-in.
make another one. I mean, that's just obvious. I don't feel like it's necessary, but if it was up to me, I would certainly want them to make more than one more. I feel like that world is ripe for the fucking picking, man. Like I think that world is way more interesting than any world of Uncharted even. I don't necessarily think they need to focus on Joel and Ellie.
Sure.
They can focus, but there's little seeds that were set, like the Fireflies, for instance. Like
Joel's brother.
Joel's brother. Like who the fuck are these people?
Yeah.
You know? Like who really are the Fireflies? And so there's like and there's interesting places to see and like what's going on in the rest of the world, and it doesn't have to be in the United States. So
that's the thing is like I think with Nathan Drake, right? We're theoretically, stick with me, right? We're living in Nathan Drake's world right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's fucking gallivanting off right now in Costa Rica and doing cool shit, but you and I are podcasting. Whereas in The Last of Us, everyone's in a fucked up situation. How are people surviving? What does it look like?
yeah, I think people are looking at it too narrowly in terms of like, well, The Last of Us was great and leave it alone. And I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment because it's very similar. We were talking about True Detective. The first season of True Detective was phenomenal, and I only watched the first episode of the second season of True Detective, and I fucking hated it. And I never watched any of it, and lo and behold, everyone fucking hates it.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes you need to leave things alone.
Yeah,
leave
just
well enough
let
alone.
it have the legacy it deserves.
Yeah, just leave it alone. But with The Last of Us, it's more like it was about Joel and Ellie, obviously, but it was really about that world too, and the ramifications of that world and what happens in that world. And I would love to look back in 15 years and have them make a few more on The Last of Us games, and not necessarily even them if that there's another developer that they trust to do it, where it would be fun to see and interesting and harrowing to see other people's experiences. And what would be really cool, and this is a Last of Us spoiler.
We'll put our hand down when the spoiler's over.
It would be cool if each game started before the event, before the fall.
Oh, dialing farther and farther back.
And then like gives you context about why things happen the way they happen.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of years there.
Exactly. In other words, there's a theme between all the games. The only hook between the games is the shared world and the shared experiences, and that they all show you what happened before and what happened to those people after. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I can see that. Here's what am I hung up on? I talk about The Last of Us, and I'd love for it to be left alone because I feel like if there's a studio that can get us. And I hate comparing us to video games to movies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that. I don't like that whole argument. But, like, there is something to be learned there in the fact that Martin Scorsese can make another Martin Scorsese film, and it isn't Casino 2. You know what I mean? Like, everyone does sequels or whatever. They can do whatever the fuck they want. But if you have something to say it. You know what I mean? If they want to say something, what we're talking about, and they want to go make... You figure right now it'd be so preposterous to play as anybody else in Last of Us. You couldn't imagine it. But if they do it once and they blow it up and it is... the Last of Us universe, the Last of Us cinematic video game universe, then you start going, oh, okay, well, now I can imagine all these different... I still want to play Ishmael's story. You know what I mean? There's so many different things I want to fucking do in that world. But right now, I also do want to see video game companies and publishers not be afraid of sequels. And Last of Us was really the first time in a while, I feel like, where it was like, hey... the guys who brought you Uncharted are making this game, and boom, it's a huge success. Like the system works. That we can have artists who create things, and they don't have to keep creating the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Naughty Dog has an interesting advantage too, which is that a lot of developers don't have. I feel like you can count on one hand the amount of developers that have this advantage, which is that people will buy anything they put out. Like they've earned such respect that The Last of Us sold based not only on its great reviews, but sold based on the fact that it was a Naughty Dog game. If The Last of Us was made by Sony Bend or something like that, no disrespect to those guys because we love them too, people would have been much more skeptical, and then would have sold later and longer if after the reviews came out. But people were excited about The Last of Us because it was a Naughty Dog game, because it was a new IP, and I respect that. But I don't. There's something sacred about the new IP, but there's also something sacred about exploring, not being afraid to explore things that need to be explored more. Like Uncharted 4 is probably the last Uncharted game, at least from Naughty Dog, and I think that sucks. Why can't Uncharted exist forever? Like if you feel like you can say something meaningful, it doesn't have to be. It's just, in other words, it's not just like shitting it out because it's an Uncharted game, but it's saying like, why limit yourself? Like Drake can never have another story after this. Why not? You know, like it goes both ways. I think studios and publishers don't, and especially publishers don't invest in games to be one-offs, and they shouldn't, because the beauty of games is that it's about interacting with a world, it's about interacting with characters and interacting with something that might mean something or be greater, or maybe it's stupid and it doesn't mean anything at all, but you have fun playing it. And I think that that's something uniquely games, and I feel like what gets me excited about The Last of Us 2, which is inevitable, is think about Drake's Fortune and then think about Among Thieves. Like, that's all you need to think about.
Yeah. The leap there.
Like, there's a massive leap between those two games.
Yeah.
Significant. And they can do the same thing with this game. You know, and I think that they will. I think just knowing what Naughty Dog's capable of, knowing that we know those guys personally over there, we know a lot of those people at that studio, and we know what they're made of. And I think that The Last of Us 2, like, people should, unlike a lot of other game sequels where you get a little bit of trepidation or whatever, I think we go into The Last of Us 2 expecting it to be even better than The Last of Us. And I think that not only do we expect that, I think that it's entirely possible and maybe even likely.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know, so if that's the case, then why not? I mean, it's the same reason why I'm excited about Uncharted 4, because the worlds are different. It's much more grounded, it's pulpy and all that kind of stuff. But I do feel like Drake is a character that can transcend time. I feel like Uncharted can even exist without Nathan Drake one day. And I feel like it's like what do you? And we identify him with the series, and rightfully so. But think about like something like James Bond, or in other words, you have a story that you want to tell, and you have a world and a theme.
Yeah.
But Bond can be many different people, you know. And
sure, he's still Bond,
right? Exactly. But Drake can still be Drake. Like, why not have a different Drake? Why not have his son? Why not have, like something else, or a story that focuses on different characters in that world? All I'm saying is that we shouldn't necessarily be trepidatious just for the sake of being trepidatious. We should be excited that people might be able to explore things that are good over and over again, like they did with Castlevania, for instance, back in the day, or like they did on the NES with Mega Man, or like they've done with Zelda or Mario. Like, these games are like, there really are no bad Mario games.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
They change, but like Mario was always, in a lot of people's minds, 2D side-scrolling or 3D. Mm-hmm. And there's no bad Mario games. You know, unless you count like Mario is missing or something like that. But I mean, in terms of core Mario games,
Mario Sunshine
Sunshine's fantastic. So I don't know. I just want to throw that out there, that I understand the trepidation about new IP and exploring different things, but you have to also understand that we can get good things when we really bury ourselves in a sequel or in a third game.
Sure.
Because the tale is always the same, Greg. And we've been in this industry for a long time, and you know the tale is as old as this fucking industry, which is the first game in a series is never what they wanted it to be.
Oh God, no! They have to cut so much and do so many different things.
The second game is always the result of what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Always. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Sure.
But it always worked with Naughty Dog.
Yeah. Rosomo says, hi, guys. With Persona 4 Dancing All Night being published by Atlus in North America, but NIS America in Europe and Bandai Namco in Australia, why doesn't Atlus publish everywhere, and do these split rights affect us gamers? That's just a money thing. It's a money and reach and business.
I mean, Atlus and NIS have been splitting regional publishing for a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of Atlus games, native Atlus games, came to Europe by NIS. So it's just a reach thing. Atlus, it's a little weird now because you have to assume it was partly because of Atlus's lack of reach and maybe a lack of funds, because you have to spend a lot of money to publish your games and then you recoup it later. So they might not have had the funds. Now that they're owned by Sega, you would think that they would be able to skip this shit. But you have to understand too that these deals might have been in place for a long time. Long before Sega was, purchased Atlus. In other words, that there just might be a deal saying, like, we publish your games in Europe. I mean, that's just the way it is. Does it affect you? No, it doesn't affect you at all. I think that here's the thing. if NIS wasn't publishing Dancing All Night in Europe, no one would. I mean, it's just like
They're getting you the games.
yeah, like
right?
so it's just these are the people that are bringing you the games. The games are the same. You're just gonna have a different splash screen in the beginning, and other than that, it's gonna be identical. And I think that's great. So I don't think it affects you at all. It's weird. There's no fucking doubt about it. It's like we talk about with Nintendo, where they just publish games. And Nintendo, it's weird because Nintendo is just a publisher, a huge publisher, but they publish like this game is like Yoshi's Yarn in Europe here, and then like 4 months later in the United States. Like why? That's the way people forget. A lot of younger people don't forget. Don't remember though. We used to wait 18 months to 2.5 years for games in the West.
Right.
So things are better now.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Is like, thank God there's people who pick up other people's rights and do the. I mean, look at Demon's Souls, right? Like PlayStation passed on it, so Atlas had to put it out.
Which was a huge blunder. What an incredible.
That's gonna go down in terms of like biggest blunders of that generation.
Yeah,
right?
they really fucked up on that. Like I think. I mean, clearly Bloodborne was a reflection on that.
Sure,
but
make good. Yeah, like.
But they really dropped the ball because Dark Souls could have been a PlayStation exclusive for them, completely.
Can you imagine?
And Bandai Namco was smart enough to be like, well, we'll fund it.
Yeah.
And they really, really dropped the ball.
Hindsight's 2020 though. You know what I mean? This has clunky controls and it isn't that fast. Nobody will want to play it.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't blame him. I mean, like if I played that game, I remember when Sam Bishop reviewed it for us, he gave it like a 9.3, but from back on IGN.
I remember that, yeah.
And I remember we were late on the review too. It was a game we were ignoring.
Yeah.
Because we're like, who the fuck cares about this?
Yeah.
And we eventually got a review out like several weeks after the game came out, and he gave it a high score. And that game had a slow burn, but it shows you that publishers sometimes are catastrophically wrong. I mean, you hear the biggest catastrophe was Minecraft was shopped to everyone.
Yep.
And that company made billions of dollars, and I'm sure that people at Sony and Microsoft and all these publishers are like, fuck.
But
But again, how do you know?
You get so many games shopped at you, and you get this game, and it looks like blocky shit. And you're like, "What the fuck is this?"
I mean, I always say that and I've said it before, if I saw Minecraft, I've been like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Get out of my office, Notch.
Because it's a fucking lightning in a bottle thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just it didn't make any sense until it did.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Minecraft is the same thing about mobile gaming, though. It's its own little isolated platform that really has nothing to do with anything else. You know what I mean? It's like people play Minecraft, right?
Sure.
People play Dota. People play these games, these encapsulated games that really have nothing to do with
the rest of the world.
The rest of gaming.
Yeah.
They're just this huge phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about it, but people passed on Minecraft.
Yeah.
Just like 25 publishers passed on Bloodstained. Like a bunch
of more. That's the next Minecraft.
Like a bunch of well, I'm just saying that's some of the most moronic shit I've ever heard in my life. I can't believe that publishers looked at that game and looked at eBay.
Yeah, who working on it? Is it what game? No, I don't need this. Thanks.
It's like, what are you, crazy?
Put on their sunglasses and they walked out of the room.
Oh, man, some publishers are just crazy. They're risk averse.
I heard a rumor that's the reason Jack Trenton left.
Yeah, he wanted.
You passed on Ega? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Brig I says, I was wondering what you guys thought are some of the best and worst mini games in gaming. Personally, some of my favorites come from Mario Party and WarioWare franchises, while one of my least favorites would be that of the beauty pageants in Pokemon. Thank you for reading my question and keep up the good work.
Yeah, the Pokemon shit's awful, isn't it?
I don't even know what they're referring to.
Yeah, there's a lot of extraneous shit in Pokemon games.
Yeah.
What came to my mind immediately was the arcade machine in Catherine. I can't remember the name. It's like Rapunzel or something like that, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which was basically just the game.
Yeah.
I loved that because it was kind of a teaching tool, but it was also fun to just kind of fuck around with it. The things that stick out to me is like just I never fucked around with them ever and didn't care was like all that shit in GTA 4 and 5, like the bowling
the dating
and like it's
shit.
It's like
Yeah.
It's like it's accoutrements like that. Les accoutrements are fun if you put a little thought into them. But I feel like a lot of this stuff people put in the games, that's the way I feel about the Pokemon stuff, is it's just like there to like, oh, this will waste your time if you want.
Sure. Extend it a little bit longer. Yeah, I mean, a good one, and this is, I'm taking a little bit differently, I think, the tackle. It's more of a mechanic, I guess, but like the torture sequence in Metal Gear Solid. Like that was like the first time, in Pound X or whatever, and then it keeps going, and they're asking all these questions and stuff. I remember thinking it was impossible to not submit, or you had to submit, you know what I mean? Otherwise you die or whatever. And then of course you eventually I talked to a friend in high school, like, if you don't, this changes. I'm like, what? And you had to go look it up. And it was like, you had to get a chapstick was the easiest way to do it and rub it back and forth on the X button. And it would just read fine. And you'd never have to worry about it, which is a pro tip for anything that ever makes you tap a button. Just take a chapstick or a pen and rub it across the button. It fucks up your controller, but you feel like a god. But that was a cool one, right? That was a different take on what I had to do there and how it was going to work. I think of bad ones. I think of when I cut a perfect circle out of my hand playing Mario Party, the original one on N64, when I would take it and rub it back and forth. I think I was blowing up the balloon for that one or whatever, and it was just perfectly cut it out and it was super raw and it hurt forever.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the whole mini game thing is fun in premise, but usually is just kind of a waste.
Yeah.
Like focus on the core. What is the core experience? Like what does it matter? A great mini game is Gwent.
I was gonna say, well, bad mini game is Gwent, just to fuck with you.
I thought Witcher. Like I feel like it's inevitable that that's gonna be a standalone game
on
like,
iPad.
oh God, probably. Jesus Christ, that's a great example of an iPad game that people actually like.
Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's on PC too,
Yeah, there you go.
so it doesn't count.
Yeah, I don't know. I Gwent is probably I usually don't fuck around with these things, but Gwent was the last one where I was like, yeah, I like this very much. Very much.
Very much. Doubling back, because this point popped up in my head, and then I never said it because I forgot, and we got caught up in something else. You're talking about doing Uncharted with somebody else. Why did it have to be Nathan Drake? I counter with Infamous.
Oh.
That should always been Cole. We shouldn't even bothered. I think when you get, like, if they do Last of Us 2 and it's not Joel or Ellie, then we're gonna be like, oh, cool, this is the universe that exists. I think Uncharted is too locked into this point that it's for Nathan Drake. So it's got to be Nathan Drake.
Yeah, it's more of a hypothetical. I don't know if I'd necessarily really in the main really want a Drake story without Drake in it.
Yeah,
but it's just to say like nothing is really sacred.
Sure, I agree. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
Infamous is a good example. It's a great example, but Infamous just wasn't handled right. Like that's the major problem with it. Infamous could live on and will live on and does live on without Cole. It's just to say like Delson was not a good character and in my opinion and there was no real resolution, like because the game can end however you want it to end, really. Like there's no resolution to what happened with Cole.
Yeah.
You know? Cole himself was an interesting character. It really wasn't so much about him though, as much as it was about like what happened and why does this world act like Cole never existed. You know, like
Sure.
that's the point I'm trying to make. And that you have to kind of like in a game where it's like there's choices to be made. It's like Mass Effect. Like it's like, no, this really is what happened. I'm like, well, why did you give us a choice at all? You know, what I really would have fucking loved with Infamous Second Son is that they were bold enough to have some way to transfer your PS3 save to your PS4, and the game played from the very beginning based on what you did in Infamous 2.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
That would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Possible, probably not. Technically, there would have been a way you could.
You just would have wasted a lot of
You
time.
would have had to patch Infamous 2 and figure that kind of stuff. That sucks, but
Yeah.
something bold like that would have been cool to at least give you agency, since that game that series was always about agency. You know.
Yeah.
That's a good example. Very good example.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Kind of Funny Gamescast. We do it for each and every week. If you want it early, head over to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Throw us a few bucks and get the MP3 Thursday evenings. If you don't want to give us any money, no big deal. Head over to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. You can get it broken up topic by topic, day by day, until we post the entire thing on the following Friday as an MP3 and video. Colin,
Yes.
this has been lovely.
It's been good.
We should do it again sometime.
Well, I'm sure we will.
All right, good. Until next time, Tim is a fuckwad. It's been our pleasure to serve you.